Hey, my little cupcakes, I have a great story. The uncorker of ocean bottles. Here's a picture of the uncorker with his kitty. We go on our adventure. Hope you like it. The uncorker of ocean bottles lived alone on a high spot with only one tree for shade. He always kept his eyes on the waves, watchful for a glint of glass. Means he was watching to see if he saw any bottles come to the shoreline. He had a job of the utmost importance. It was his task or job to open any bottles found at sea and make sure that they were delivered. So people were sending messages in the corked up bottles, and he had to get them and make sure the person got the message. Sometimes to deliver a bottle, he needed only to stroll to the nearest village. Other times he would journey until his compass became rusty and he felt loneliness as sharp as fish scales. So sometimes he could deliver the message close by, but other times he had to travel far to make sure it was delivered. Sometimes the messages were very old, crunchy like leaves in the fall. Sometimes the messages were written by a quill dipped in sadness. Sometimes the messages were old and sometimes the messages were sad. But most of the time, they made people quite happy, for a letter can hold the treasure of a clam-hugged pearl. So usually these messages he delivered made the people very happy. While the uncorker of ocean bottles loved his job, he couldn't help but wonder if he would ever receive a letter. Truth be told, each time he opened a bottle, a part of him hoped to see his own name winking from the top of the page. But then he remembered that this was about as likely as finding a mermaid's toenail on the beach. Mermaids don't have toes, so it's very unlikely. For he had no name, he had no friends. He smelled of seaweed and salt and had fisherman's feet. No one would ever write him a letter. No one. So he was just wishing someone would send him a bottle. But he thought, no one's going to send me a bottle. But he still would have liked it just the same. Even though he knew no one would send him one because he didn't have any friends, he still wished someone would send him a message through a bottle. One day the waves tipped their white postman hats to the uncorker and delivered a bottle with a very peculiar letter inside. I'm not sure you will get this in time, but I'm having a party tomorrow evening tide at the seashore. Will you please come? So he got the message that someone was throwing a party and they wanted the other person to come. He's got to try and deliver this message in time. Oh dear, said the uncorker. He had no idea who the letter was for or where to deliver it. But the truth was, he was very curious. He had never been invited to a party before, and he suspected he might like to go. So he got the message, but he didn't know who was going to get it. So he was very curious who this was for. First he visited the maker of cakes. Pardon, said the uncorker, but do you recognize this print or letter? The cake maker studied the note. Don't recognize the script, he finally said, but oh, how I love a seaside dance. The uncorker moved on. So the baker of cakes didn't know who had written it because he didn't recognize the print. He said, oh, he loved to go to a party by the seashore. He asked a candy shop owner. He asked a woman buying chocolate-dipped treats. He asked a young girl in a green dress. Sorry, each one sighed. Sorry, though I do wish I'd received an invitation to such a fine party. So they didn't know who had sent the message, but each one of them wished they could go to the seaside party. The uncorker asked a seagull, a sailor, and a one-man band. But nobody could claim the letter. Nobody in the sky or sand or sea could claim it. So he asked everybody, but nobody could claim the letter in the bottle. Aw. The uncorker felt very low. This was the first time he'd been able to deliver a message. It was the first time. Everyone else got their messages, but this time he had no idea who this was for. And he fell asleep that night. As he fell asleep that night, the uncorker decided to go to the seashore the next day. He would go and apologize to the writer of the note for not delivering the message. So he felt so bad he couldn't find who this went to. He said, I'm going to find out. I'm going to go to the seashore and find out and tell them I didn't deliver it. I'm sorry. The uncorker of ocean bottles arrived early, carrying a handful of his favorite seashells. He thought it might be rude to show up uninvited and empty-handed. So here he is walking up to the seashore, and he said, I don't want to come empty-handed, so he had some seashells with him. He was going to tell the person he was sorry. He didn't deliver the message. The seashore was draped in seaweed and starfish. Candles floated in clamshells. There were sand sculptures and umbrellas. It's you, said the maker of the cakes. How grand, said the candy shop owner. The other guests had arrived already. A woman, a girl, in a green dress, a seagull, a sailor, a one-man band. All the people he asked about the note were at the seashore. Everybody came. Even the seagull. When the girl in green asked the uncorker of ocean bottles to dance, he said, I'm not sure I know how, but I'd like to just the same. As they spun across the beach to the water's edge and back again, everyone smiled and kept the beat. So the uncorker bottles was dancing with the girl in the green dress, and everyone else was clapping and smiling and keeping the beat. The uncorker's heart was a glass vessel filled to the brim. He was so happy. As the stars began to arrive and the moon as well, the uncorker took out the bottle he had been unable to deliver. Perhaps he said, his mouth full of cake, yes, perhaps I shall try to deliver this again tomorrow. So he got his wish. He got his party unintentionally. I hope you like that.